is it possible to grow food in an area where you get 100-degree temperatures on a regular basis? Well, some people would say that it's not possible. And I'm going to say that it depends. If you want to grow something like broccoli, no, probably not. If you want to grow something like lettuce, no, you probably wouldn't want to eat that. It tastes awful when it's grown in that kind of heat. But tomatoes, maybe. Really the trick to growing in extreme heat is being incredibly selective about what exactly you're growing. So today I'm going to walk you through the garden and I'm going to show you what is growing well in a very hot climate during the summer and what is not growing well. So let's start in the beds. I have 4 beds right here and then we'll talk about that line over there. So in this first bed, I have hot peppers in this corner. These little purple ones are a purple cayenne. Then I have some Anaheim chili peppers. Right here, I have the start of some poblanos. I actually already harvested this once. And then right here, kind of in the back, I have a bunch of jalapenos, and then there's some jalapenos way in the back there as well. Oh, they're actually climbing. You can see all the peppers right there. And then right here is all of my beans. I'm mainly growing lima beans and these guys right here. These are cranberry beans. They are starting to get that little pinkish color inside. They actually look like a pink and white. They're really, really pretty. And then way back in here somewhere, oh, you can just start to see it. This guy right here is a peanut. I grew some peanuts behind the beans and they kind of got shaded out by the rest of these beans. Now, not all beans do very well. Like a green bean, I'll show you some over there, they're not doing well at all. But some of the more heat-tolerant beans like cowpeas and lima beans do pretty well. Now, in this bed right here, and I just planted this bed not too long ago, is a bunch of sweet potatoes. I just put these in. This is the experiment that we're doing where we're gonna compare a sweet potato bed with a sweet potato container. And they both are doing well. They're starting to establish, which is good, but they got a long ways to go before they're full. And then right over here, this one is an odd bed. It has kind of gotten really, really messy, and I haven't spent a lot of time like focused on cleaning it up, but there's a lot of stuff in here. So to start with right here, and it is already starting to get massive, is the Puerto Rican black bean. I have some old kidney beans that I didn't catch all of them. I have some bee balm, which I use for medicinal purposes. And then I actually still have some tomatoes on this one. They look to be, they were a volunteer, but they look to be Everglade tomatoes with how tiny they are. I have one that I believe is a red cherry, the large red cherry as well, but that one looks like it has puttered out completely. Now this bed right here also is kind of a collection. The thing that you're gonna see right here is going to be the cantaloupe. I have 4 of these on here at each corner of the beds. And this one is really starting to do quite well. Believe it or not, cantaloupes and melons in general can do quite well during the summer. I find that the cantaloupes seem to do better because of the pest pressure. You know, watermelons, they bore into the watermelons kind of super easy, but the cantaloupes with that kind of hard, crusty outside rind, they don't have the easiest time getting into those. So I have much better luck growing cantaloupe this time of year, but they do have disease. It's already starting. They have powdery mildew on a bunch of the leaves. I've been spraying them with my peroxide mix, but I'm gonna have to clip these leaves off in hopes that I can keep ahead of it in time to get a harvest. The other thing I have in here is some more Puerto Rican black beans and then some leftover tomato plants. I'm actually pretty shocked about this. I know it looks like a complete and utter mess, but you can see red tomatoes up there, and I've been checking on the new flowers, and I do have some of them that are dropping. You can see that that one dropped, that one dropped, that one, but I still have some that are setting fruit. This one right here, you can kind of tell that it's going to hold. It's not going to drop. So that really tells me that this, oh, here's some more right here. They're not all dropping. Normally what you would see in the heat is those flowers would break off and drop, kind of like they did right here. these spots. But this particular tomato right here is still setting fruit, which is really shocking. Once they get above about 85, 90 degrees, the fruit set is usually a pretty big problem. They don't like to set fruit when it's that temperature, mainly because when the flower opens, the pollen has to like drop down from the male part of the flower into the female part of the flower, and it just is so humid and sticky and hot that it just doesn't do that effectively. So you really got to look for varieties that do that effectively. Everglade tomatoes do it very, very effectively. They may not produce the entire summer, but they also may not be as productive because they may not be able to push that pollen down perfectly every time. But they are going to be more productive than any other tomato, like this one right here. This is one of my beefsteaks. I have one tomato left on the vine here. The rest of them, you can see there's not a single tomato anywhere else. I really should just cut all this down, top it, but I haven't been out here much. So I'm just leaving it just so that this guy right here can ripen. And also I have my melon coming up through here, and I'm a little concerned that by chopping up this tomato plant, I'm gonna mess up the melon. So I've got to figure that out. Then I have all this line of my other annual bed right here. And there's a bunch of stuff on here as well. So in this particular bed, I still have a lot of tomatoes, and some of these bigger ones, these are like the homesteads and the florades, they actually are still setting fruit. And you can see that right here. I still have some flowers that are setting. Oh, geez. That was a leaf foot bug. That's another one of our problems. That scared the crap out of me. But it's still setting fruit. You can see right here, the fruit is still coming in. So that's actually a pretty big shock for me, because usually like this one looks like it might, like when it starts to get that yellow, but these other ones, the flower has died off, and I'm pretty sure that that's going to set fruit. We'll see. It's not typical for a size tomato as this, like a larger size tomato, or this one right here, which is the Florida, to actually produce in these temperatures. But it is doing that currently, so I'm going to let it continue growing until it stops doing that. It does have blight. It does have, obviously, pest issues. It's got a lot of issues going on, but it will still produce tomatoes for quite a bit longer. Y'all, I can't even talk about this right here. This is that prism kale I grew during the winter. It has slugs. It has probably aphids on the underside of this. Oh yeah, you see that? White flies everywhere. If you guys are always wondering, like, do I have pests? Yeah, I have a ton of them. There is white flies all over this. I'm not eating this anymore because it's kind of gross to try to get off all of the bugs at this point. But I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for this thing to bolt, either one of them. And they're not there yet, although I feel like it is starting to happen. But man, that thing lasts for forever. I also have some Marihani basil right here, and then some sad eggplants. I don't know if those are going to work out. I also put in some Puerto Rican black beans at the four corners. I do this a lot. Once I see a plant that is starting to go downhill, like these tomatoes are really starting to go downhill, I will immediately transplant something right near them, because I know these plants are going to die soon and I don't want to waste the space. So I plant something that is, you know, at a seedling stage, as I know that they're starting to die out or starting to show pest issues or starting to show disease, so that way I never have a bed that's empty. That is like my big thing. Never have a bed empty. I hate having beds empty. They can be growing food. All right, next one is this guy right here. In this section is my sweet peppers. This was an experiment for me to grow, I think it was like 22 different kinds of sweet peppers to see which ones do the best. And I gotta tell you guys, I was not impressed with any of them this year. Any of them. I mean, the Cubanellas did okay, and the pimentos, they did pretty good, but nothing extraordinary. I'm kind of a little upset about that. None of them were extraordinary, and I have grown a bunch of varieties this year that are known for hot climates. So I'm not giving up yet. I feel like maybe they didn't get the start that they needed, although I started them all in January, so they should have been fine. And I did get a harvest. I did get a harvest, but not like it did last year. So maybe it's the year, maybe it's the drought. I don't know. But I'm gonna let them keep going. They've deserved a space, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that when fall rolls around, they'll do fine through summer. They're not gonna probably produce very well, but during summer, they'll do fine. The plant will live. But hopefully in fall, they'll wake back up and they'll start flowering again. I've had that happen many, many years. So we're not over yet, but we're gonna have to keep an eye on these guys. And you can see they actually are still producing fruit. So I have some. I have one right there. I have a little one right there. There's one over there. I just picked one off last night for a salad. I have some straw flowers, and I'm pretty shocked that they're still alive. And I have some that are just now blooming. So that's pretty cool. I wasn't too impressed with them. I think I let them get a little too tall, so they look a little wonky. I pulled out this bed and planted these guys right here, which is I think it's Titan 64. It's a special sweet potato. It's meant to get super, super huge. I put some everywhere. I got 8 slips. They were special. I had to be on a waiting list for forever with Cody Cove Farms. I rooted them first in some water, and they looked like they were doing great. They were forming new leaves. They had a wonderful root structure, and then I put them in the ground, and they all but gave up, which I'm really shocked about because I heard that they are like, have no problems whatsoever. Apparently, transplant is a little bit of a problem for them. I should have babied them. So now that I realize that most of them died off, except for one, I am babying that one because if I can get that one to produce enough of a vine, I can cut those pieces of the vine and reroot them in different spots. Although that means that I'm getting a very late start on these sweet potatoes, and they take about 4 to 6 months. So they are going to grow until almost Christmas, but that's okay. I really, really want to grow this variety. My pride and joy right now in the garden is watermelons. My watermelons are doing so good this year. We have one right here. I've got a baby one started right there. Oh, we're gonna come back to this. I'm gonna tell you all about that. Then I have, you can barely see it right there, another watermelon. And then here's a watermelon. So far, I have 5 watermelons. I've had difficulties in the past with watermelons, getting them to not, get disease or have pickle worms. And so far this year, the pickle worms have been almost non-existent. And I think that's because I have a family of cardinals living up here, and they had babies, and so they have been feasting pretty aggressively on all of the worms and bugs in my garden. So that has been very, very helpful. So I haven't seen a lot of pickle worms, but I have been waiting because I know it's only a matter of time before these watermelons get some sort of disease for me. Right now they look great. I'm very happy with them. They have 5 watermelons. I'm hoping for a couple more. I see some here. I saw a baby one yesterday. I have a baby one right here. I don't know 100% yet if it's pollinated. We'll know in a couple days if it gets bigger. So hopefully we've got a few more of those somewhere in this bed. I've let this actual watermelon that's all the way over here is coming from way back there. There's 3 of them, and I let them branch out that way, and I've let them branch out this way to give them plenty of space so that hopefully it does starve off the disease. But that means some of my things like the jicamas are hiding inside the watermelon. I hope that that they don't get overtaken by it. Although I think they're doing okay. But the watermelons might be choking them off. I'm kind of concerned about this. We're gonna see. We're gonna just let it go. But this guy, y'all told me, and I am super stoked that you did. Oh, we definitely have some pest activity right there. You see that? Something's chewing it up. But these guys, these are the soya long Asian cucumbers. And they're odd looking, I'll give you that. They are a little weird. The skin isn't what I prefer in a cucumber, but when you peel it, it tastes wonderful. It tastes just like a cucumber. It's starving off the disease. It's handling the bugs on the leaves. Obviously, there's some bugs on the actual fruit, but this is the first time I've been able to grow cucumbers in complete heat. So it's really all about variety, because this guy's doing good. I have a second variety in here. That's another type of Asian cucumber. I can't remember the name of it, but it hasn't produced anything yet. I still see leaves. I still see it growing. I just haven't seen anything pollinate, so that may be a bust. I'll put the name right here, soya long. That thing is doing great, and it tastes wonderful. It tastes just like a cucumber. Just peel it because it gets a little odd. Once again, I don't know why, I'm glutton for punishment. I am trying to grow squashes, and there's bugs. There's plenty of bugs. There is, I don't know if you can see him, but he's like right there. That's slugs. I've got a bunch of male flowers as usual. No females. Every time the females, I have another one right over here. Every time the female flowers show up, they never open. And I've had this happen before in my garden, only in the heat. When it's during spring or when it's during fall, I don't have this problem. But in the heat, the female flowers will show up. You'll see the bottom of the fruit. You'll see the closed flower, and then it just dies. I thought maybe I would try it with a new variety. Still didn't work. That's okay. I have a bunch of sunflowers. They are about on their way out. I'm just letting the bees enjoy the last of them. Check those guys out. Tiny little cute bees, they're so adorable. But I'm letting those finish up pollinating all of these sunflowers so that way I can save the seed. I don't have to buy sunflowers next year. And on top of that, the pollinators just love them. And then over here I have a couple more things. I still have my lacinato kale. Once again, this one is probably riddled with bugs. Actually, it's not that bad. Look at that. I don't see a lot of aphids on it yet. Yeah, actually, I don't see any aphids. I definitely have some slug and snail damage down here, but that's not bad. And it still tastes good. I also have echinacea here. That's one of my medicinal plants. I have some snapdragons. If I cut that off at the top, they'll continue growing. And then interplanted in here just a couple days ago, I started putting some of my turmeric and my ginger. Now we're gonna head into the part of the garden where I have a lot of random containers. This is like my container garden now, as well as I have my native garden over my shoulder here. Some roselle in a pot. These are starry rosinweed, some coreopsis, and then the salt and pepper. These are all for the pollinators. And then over here, this one is a corky stem passion vine, and that is also for butterflies or pollinators. Down here in these pots, I have ginger and turmeric. Still working our way through the pots. I have my lemongrass that I'm using medicinally. I have my coral honeysuckle. Around the palm tree here, I have all of my pineapples. They're going on year 2. I have a Seminole pumpkin vine that is starting to climb. If you guys remember this last year, I grew a Seminole pumpkin up my palm tree here, and it gave me like, I think 7 or 8 pumpkins. And it grew all through summer. Something about the shade of this palm tree really helped it. The disease never got to it. The bugs never really bothered it. I think it's because it's a little bit away from where all the main bug activity is happening. And because it's like up this palm tree, it gets like good airflow, but it also gets good shade. It's really like, it really likes this spot. I just have to keep working on the soil because the soil isn't great right there. It's just in ground. I've been working on it, but it's always, it's one of those things. It's gonna take years. Here I've moved my blueberries. You see, there's still some berries on them. I've moved them over here to let them continue growing. I cut down all my perennial strawberries. They're starting to come back. This is what happens. I chop them off at the base here, leaving just the crown and maybe an inch. And then I keep them in this shaded spot. It's pretty shady right here. And then every month or so I come through and I cut off any green. I want them to settle down. I want them to kind of go to sleep for the summer. It's gonna be a rough summer for them. Have a rosemary. These are my green stalks with a lot of my herbs. I've got some Swiss chard. I've got some basil, some chives, some catnip, another roselle, some parsley, mint, lemon balm, sage, oregano, cranberry hibiscus, sorrel that really hates this time of year. I actually need to cut that back, otherwise it's just going to be unhappy. And then over here is just an awful looking green stalk, really. I have some of my older strawberries in here, and these are my green beans. This is what has happened to my green beans. The leaves just get really rough, and then they've had a lot of bug damage. You can see there's still some beans on there, but right now I'm letting these beans actually save so that I can keep them, and that's how I will plant my beans next year. Around the corner here, another roselle, and then our taro. I actually forgot to water this for like a week or 2, and so I had a lot of leaf drop, but it's starting to come back. And then my last green stalk is the experiment that we did last week, where we looked at how to plant sweet potatoes in the green stalk. And you guys, look at this thing. already. That's gonna get pretty wild here soon, I can see it. Now we're gonna take a look at all the fruit trees. So Peachy has already completed all of her peaches. She finished all of her peaches. Lychee, I probably need to pull this one out, honestly. I don't know if it will ever produce here. The plum tree, this particular one did not produce this year, but it's a first year plant, so that's okay. This is the Indian berry, and you can see it's the Indian sherbet berry, and it is doing very, very well. It has its first flush of berries. They're called sherbet berries because the berries are actually different colors. So they go through this ripening process, and at the end, sometimes they land on like a blue, sometimes they land at a purple, sometimes they land on a pink color. They're very good. They're very tart, very sour. So I don't know if they're everyone's cup of tea, but I love them. I love sour candy, and that's what it reminds me of. It's kind of a more rare fruit tree. It reminds me a lot of the strawberry tree. Because the berries are so tiny, but they're very, very productive. Obviously it tastes different. That one tastes like cotton candy. That one I've killed multiple times here, but this one does very, very well. Then I've planted more roselle in the ground. Here is my elderberry, and guys, I couldn't be more ecstatic. There are elderberries all the way at the top, and then if you come down, I mean, this thing has gotten huge. This grew all that much in 1 year, and you can see all those little berries. I didn't get perfect pollination here, but this is much better pollination than I got last year. So my plan is to use this to make an elderberry syrup, an elderberry tincture, elderberry gummy drops. I'm gonna do all kinds of elderberry stuff. I'm also gonna cut it way down. We'll do that together, but I'm gonna cut it back significantly. Their roots are kind of getting everywhere. It's a little close to the house. I want it more of a bush than I wanted a tree. Loquat right here isn't doing much. It's growing though. Now this is the plum tree that actually produced. You can see it's in a pot. I mainly kept it because I wanted it to be a pollinator for that plum tree, but they flower at different times. I really researched this. The only thing I can think of is that by putting it in a pot, it warms up quicker. And so the flowers on this one come out first, and then that one comes out later. So I don't have that quite right. The interesting thing is this one got pollinated by something close by because it came out with flowers. That one was still like, you know, winter dead, and this one flowered and produced fruit. So I don't know where it produced fruit from, but we might end up just keeping this one. Then we have our blackberries. They're all coming in right now. It looks scraggly as it usually does, but I'm getting a lot of blackberries from this already. There's a lot of clusters. I also have a bunch of new canes coming in, which I'm very happy about because I didn't properly cut these back last year, but they're still doing quite well. But I want to do it properly this year. I want to cut the old canes off after they're done producing, and then just leave the new canes so that I know which ones are going to produce and which ones aren't. The pomegranate right here, it's gotten quite a bit bigger. It looks great, but it's not producing yet. It's going to be probably another, I think I'm going to probably have to wait 2 or 3 years on the pomegranate, as well as maybe this lychee back, or loquat back here. Now, you guys have heard about my mulberries. I cut it back after I harvested all the mulberries, and it has grown again, and it has mulberries again. I don't know what I'm doing with all these mulberries. I had to talk with Jacqueline over at the Wild Floridian yesterday, like, girl, what are you doing with all your mulberries? Because she's got huge trees. I have already canned pretty much everything that I can think of, and she mentioned smoothies. I'm like, oh, why didn't I think about that? I could put those in smoothies as like a berry banana smoothie. So I'm gonna do that. Thank you, Jacqueline. So these are all the fruit trees in the back. I also have an avocado out front, and he's doing wonderfully. We have avocados for the first year. Last year he didn't produce. This year he's producing, and there's probably, my guess, about 20 of them, maybe 30 of them on the tree. Very happy to have the avocados. Now let's head into the patio so I can show you the ones that are in here. So we're gonna start right here. Here is my little sad lavender. It is still alive. Basically everyone tells me, like, don't water it hardly at all. It looks kind of rough for not watering it, but it's still alive. We're gonna see if I can get it to get better. Then this one is a sweet almond. It's basically just a really pretty shrub that makes very pretty flowers, and they smell amazing. Over here I have the Vitex, and it is flowering, kind of drawing in pollinators into here, and it is growing very well. This is one that I use as a medicinal. It's really good for women's health, so time of the month, menopause, those kinds of things. You dry the leaves, you can put it in tea. It's helpful. Over here is the baby area. I have some baby jaboticabas started from seed. I have some ginger and turmeric. I have a fig that one of my viewers sent me, which I am so ecstatic. He sent me 3 cuttings and one of them took hold, and I'm very excited about that. I have some lilies that are meant for here. I have another pack of ginger and turmeric. Let's talk about the ginger and turmeric for a minute, because you've probably seen me mention it. I have it here, I have it in a bed, I have it in ground, I have it in pots out there, I have it everywhere. And that's because I made the mistake. I guess I didn't fully understand or appreciate how you grow ginger. So I started it and I waited like a month back in, I think it was February, nothing happened. So I got some more, I started that, nothing happened. So I had like 3 rounds of ginger and turmeric that I started. I never threw them out, you know, once they didn't do anything. A month would go by and nothing would happen. And then I realized that I think it's like a time of year thing. So I could be completely wrong about this, but I think it is a time of year thing. Because what happened is regardless if I started them in February, March, April, all of them popped up in May. All of them. And I was suddenly like, okay, maybe it's not like one of those plants where you put it and then it just pops up, you know, a few days later. Maybe it's like based on something to do with temperature or daylight or something. I don't know. But then all of a sudden I had ridiculous amounts of ginger and turmeric that sprouted. So we're gonna have lots of ginger and turmeric. I'm still figuring out what to do with all of it. Then over here I have some Puerto Rican black beans. I actually have all the ones I want planted and they all took hold. So these guys are probably gonna go in the trash or give them to a family member or something. These were my backups. And then I have a bunch of babies right here. There's a Confederate rose. There is a basil right there. It's like what is it called? An African numum. A friend of the channel sent me this. This is not the oregano, but I think I see one of the oreganos popping up right there. The tomatoes didn't take. These are all jaboticabas. So I harvested my jaboticabas this year, and then I planted the seeds to see if I could get them to take off, and I had pretty decent germination on these guys. And then back here I have some tomato cuttings. So this was from my very best tomato plant, and I took cuttings and now I'm protecting them inside. I'm letting them get a little sun right now so they can get a little bit bigger, and then I'm gonna put them in pot and put them underneath complete shade in my patio where they'll get no rain. They have to be watered to see if I can grow them during the summer. This is a large tomato. That is that Kiwola tomato I was telling you about in that video where I grew a bunch of different tomatoes. Then I have right here is the banana. This is the baby banana. This is one of the pups. Down here I have my mulberry in a container or in a pot. Way over here is the mama banana. I'm really hoping any day now that I'm going to get the flower. Not yet. That's still a pretty big leaf. I'm looking for a small leaf. There are some pups down here from it. So I keep cutting those back because I want her to focus on creating her bananas. But she's gotten really big, guys. She's gotten pretty big. This is a dwarf. I always say it wrong. Cavendish. So she's not expected to get like super huge. And then over here we have the jaboticaba, which is still fruiting. So it got its big flush of fruit in early March, but I still have some. If we reach back here. They're still putting off a couple fruits like every few weeks. I didn't really expect it to be putting off fruit beyond that first round, but I guess it does, which is a pleasant surprise. That means I have little snacks when I go out into the pool, and that's exactly what we do. We come out in the pool, we swim, we look to see if any are ripe, and then we eat them right in the pool. So that was a lot of plants. There is a lot of things that still grow this time of year, and there's even more than that. I'm not even growing things like okra or long beans this year, and all of those are options for you to be able to grow in your very hot, very summer garden. So I hope this gives you some inspiration of what you can still plant. And a lot of these you can start from seed right now. You can still plant sweet potato slips. You can still start long beans. You can still start Puerto Rican beans. You can still start ginger, turmeric. You could probably get away with starting some cantaloupe. You definitely can get away with starting all the tropicals like bananas, papayas, pineapples. There is a ton of things you can still grow that will grow all through the summer months with no help from us, it will just grow and you don't have to be out here in the heat. So make sure to head down to the comments and let me know what you are growing in your garden during this summer. I hope you guys had fun hanging out with me. I had fun hanging out with you. Happy gardening, guys.